Hi, my name is Brittany Rainbold, and this is my lesson plan for Unit 3, Challenges, Changes, and Media, which is for my 8th grade gifted ELA class. In this unit, my students are reading Elie Wiesel's Night as part of a larger focus on the Holocaust, Challenges, Changes, and the Media. So after reading the novel, or the memoir Night, my students will analyze how Elie's character evolves during the course of his imprisonment in the concentration camp, and how Germany's propaganda machine influenced the regular people to be willing to imprison the Jews in the concentration camp, and how media continues to play a large role in what we as people are willing to do today. So students are going to analyze media and then create their own media campaigns. So let me take you to the lesson. So here's just a brief kind of overview of the lesson and the lesson plan. So it just gives you kind of a little outline here. So it begins with a little bell ringle journal. We have a Quizlet Live directed browsing activity. There's some research. And then finally they create a video and an infographic. So you download the lesson plan. All right, so the daily topic, those students will be able to explain the use of the rhetorical appeals in media to persuade and draw conclusions and comparison between pre-World War II Germany propaganda and media today in order to form their own campaigns. They will identify the rhetorical appeals in various forms of media, print and digital, with at least 75% accuracy, analyze and interpret how the rhetorical appeals help to serve the purpose of the piece of media in writing, and will compare and contrast pre-World War II propaganda and modern-day PSA announcements, use of rhetorical appeals, and create a campaign that uses all three of the appeals. There's this 8th grade standards that we're trying to hit today. The materials are internet connected devices for each pair of students at minimum. Each of my students do have Chromebooks, so that's what we use in my classroom. The lesson begins with a journal activity. What is the purpose of media? This is something that we would have talked about multiple times at this point, but we're just kind of, breaking the ice and kind of getting deeper into where we're going with that. The teacher would ask students to share some of their journal responses and then review the rhetorical appeals with the class by playing Quizlet Live. We'll get into that more when we go into the technology tools. Then we would begin the directed browsing activity. Here's where you can monitor the students and assist as necessary, depending upon your students' familiarity with the rhetorical appeals and how they feel about it. This could take the whole class period. This could depend on the length of your class period. I teach on a 90-minute block, and my students are very familiar with this concept. So it wouldn't take my students very long to do this. Now, if this is a newer concept for your students, or if you teach on a shorter time period, this could be the entire lesson for one day, and the rest of this lesson, the student part of this lesson, might bleed into the next day. And then the students would share out the information from the directed browsing activity in their table groups. My students are in pairs, and then they have pair groups of 3 at a table. So depending on your classroom, they could share out as groups or share out to the whole group. And then I would explain, or the teacher would explain, the media campaign activity, and students could choose different partners or keep the same partner, or you could assign partners and begin researching on their topic for their media campaign. And then I would have them complete the project to present the next class. You could also do this as a culminating unit activity that could take multiple class periods, depending upon how much structure you wanted to give them and how much value you want to put on those research skills, if you need to hit those research skills for your class as well. All right, technology. All right, technology tools. For our teacher tools, we have Quizlet Live. So the really cool thing about Quizlet is that if you have a Google account, you can link this to your Google Plus, your regular Google account. If you're using Google Classroom and things, you can link this with your Google Classroom. You don't have to reinvent the wheel if you just search rhetorical appeals. There's all kinds of things already made on Quizlet if you just click on the search bar here. If you have more than 13 terms, you can play Quizlet Live. You just click live and then wait for 6 or more students to join, and it'll start a live game that's really very interactive for the students because it forces them to participate, because each student has different answer choices on their screen. So unless each kid participates, on the team, then the team cannot get points. And the kids really do like it. I do have a very small class that doesn't have enough kids to play Quizlet Live, so sometimes I'll do flashcards with them. You can also, if you don't want to play a whole class game, you could do flashcards, or have them play flashcards individually, or play Match or Gravity individually if you wanted to do a game with them that way as well. Going back to the Weebly, we have the directed browsing activity. So here in the directed browsing activity, we have that just kind of the overview. Media is used to inform and persuade people about a wide variety of topics. This is true today as it was in Nazi Germany, kind of an overview. So our activities, the first is to go to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum website and read an article about the purpose of propaganda in Nazi Germany, and how it forced their social agenda. So they're going to summarize that purpose and then analyze why were children the main targets. Then they're going to go look at some pieces of propaganda that were kind of aimed more towards children and analyze it here in this chart, where they're going to describe the piece of propaganda, analyze the clarity of the message, look at the various elements of the visuals and talk about what's going on in those visuals, and then tell me why or why not those that piece of propaganda was effective, or why it would have been effective. Then they're going to go look at PSA Central and watch 2 videos on wildlife prevention with our dear friend Smokey the Bear. So if you've been alive in the 90s, I'm sure you've seen the Smokey the Bear commercials. So they're going to fill out the same questions. And here in question 3, it's asking them, how are the modern day wildlife commercials similar to in purpose and methods to the Nazi propaganda? Obviously, we're not trying to say, wildlife prevention and, killing Jews are the same thing. And really, actually, all those pieces of propaganda that are on those posters aren't really necessarily about killing the Jews. It's about promoting German superiority. So, why is it important to feel empathetic about, or superior, or happy? What kind of emotions are we trying to, how are they playing on emotions, and how are those kinds of things, and how's logic being used in the ads in similar fashion? So it's trying to get the kids to look at it in that way. Then we have the student tools, which is the media research presentation. So this hits a lot of different things. You can go deep into the research part if you need to hit those research skills, which I know is really hard for a lot of people. So it's asking them to develop a multimedia presentation that informs their peers about an issue of national or global significance and convinces your audience to take action. So you're going to work collaboratively with a partner. You're going to conduct and synthesize research into an engaging campaign that challenges your audience to make a difference. You have to include all the appeals, and they have to do both types of presentation. So they're going to make a video, which can be a Powtoon, Animoto, or Movie Maker, and then an infographic with Canva or Piktochart. And then, of course, because this is English, there has to be a written analysis. So they have to tell me what their campaign topic is, what is their campaign aim to do, and then describe their appeals. And so this is just the rubric. You could change it. The rubric itself isn't basic, but the point values are kind of vague, so that you could change the point values and how you assign points depending upon what you need it to do. All right, so here are some examples. Let me show you this really cute Powtoon.
budget using Powtoon.
Alright, so this is a great video because it was very informative, it hit all three appeals, and it gave the audience specific actions that they could do in order to make a change, which is very helpful, specifically when your audience is, 13 and 14-year-olds, which is what I told them to do. So that is a video that would have gotten full points. So here is a infographic on clean water. So here you have, in our society, clean water is a necessity that we take for granted. So they've got some statistics here, like awesome photos, definitely making you feel some things. Contrast of, filthy water versus like our pristine bathrooms. And then again, 5 very specific ways. 5 ways that you can help specifically, which is awesome and super helpful. So very clear ways to get everything done. So that is this lesson in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it is helpful to everybody out there who's interested in teaching about media. Thanks. Bye.